I am Paul Sanger for the Finance News Network, and today I'm talking with Chilwa Minerals, ASX code CHW, and they have a market cap of around 9 million. Chilwa was incorporated in 22 and listed on the ASX in July this year. They are focused on mining exploration, specifically targeting mineral sands and rare earths at the Lake Chilwa Principe in southern Malawi. The company's primary exploration targets are critical mineral deposits, specifically heavy mineral sands such as ilmenite and zircon. The area is also highly prospective for rare earth elements such as monazite and xenotime, with the existing geology workings and discoveries on adjacent tenements indicating its potential. We welcome Chilwa founder and managing director Cadell Buss. Welcome, Cadell.
Hi, Paul. Good to be here.
That was a mouthful getting those some of those names out. Cadell, to kick things off, can you tell us a little bit more about Chilwa's asset? As I understand, one of the key features is the amount of exploration drilling that has historically been done on this asset.
Yes, it has, Paul. It currently does have an inferred resource. So drilling was done back in 2015, and an inferred resource has been put on the asset by the Motor Angel Group, which was the company that had the asset prior and was part of the vendor deal. It's a significant size area, sort of expanding over about 400 square kilometres. And then during our process of listing, we've actually got an extension to that area in the south. So we've actually now got about an 800 square kilometre area. The resources currently has got 10 deposits, ranging over the initial 400. So yes, we do have a large area and a fair bit of work to do in front of us.
So back in October, you announced to the market that drilling had commenced at Maposa. What can you tell us about these early holes?
Well, so Maposa represents about approximately 33% of the current resource of 62 million tonnes. And so what we decided to do was to commence at Maposa. And what happened previously was that in the drilling that was conducted in 2015, the Motor Angel at the time used air core drilling, so they weren't able to really sort of reach the bedrock. So we engaged a sonic drilling technique. So the sonic drilling is much more, I suppose, user-friendly in relation to areas near water. And what we've uncovered in our announcement was that we've actually got to a much greater depth than we anticipated. So we've sort of got to sort of 50 metres. We actually ran out of drilling casings. So, it's certainly surprised us a little bit. And what we've uncovered is that we believe there's different sedimentary packages. So we now sort of, as I said, it's gone a lot deeper. So, that's encouraging for us. And to be clear, just because it's deeper, it doesn't necessarily mean there's more mineralisation. But certainly it's a pleasant surprise for us.
And what did the results reveal? More than I expected, I understand?
Yeah, so look, we've just made an announcement last week as well in relation to we'll now be getting a second rig in. So we're actually getting a diamond rig. So the reason for the diamond rig is that we can actually go much deeper to explore some clays that are underneath that sedimentary package. And again, caveat on the statement, we need to understand what that is for us. So, but we definitely have, as a board, made a decision that we'll be starting to explore and test some of those different sedimentary packages, being the clays. So, it's I suppose that's what exploration's all about. We were originally just looking for mineral sands, and now we've found these different levels. It's definitely gone a lot deeper, and that's why we're going to be, as I said, engaging a second rig, which will be diamond, which can go a bit deeper for us.
And look, given the results thus far, how much potential remains for extending the deposit? How big could it be?
Look, that's the $1 million question, right? And I suppose one thing, as I said, we do have a very large area, and I suppose what we need to do is to really sort of get a bit more of an understanding. I think one of the key attributes we have is that we can do more testing, is particularly in the lab. In our prospectus, in our independent geological report, we know that there were some errors in the lab in 2015, so we'll correct those areas. So the slimes were overstated. Now, slimes doesn't necessarily mean higher grade, but what it can mean potentially is more heavy mineral sands. So look, Paul, it's a good question and one I get asked a lot. But one thing's for sure, we're doing a 17,000 metre sonic drilling program, so we've got the capacity to do a fair amount of work. So how big is big? It's hard to say, but one thing's for sure, we've been encouraged is probably a word I would say, and cautiously optimistic that the resource could be bigger.
And now, Cadell, let's move on. Let's talk a bit more about Malawi. Africa has a checkered past when it comes to mineral exploration, and some investors are still a little wary of investing in African assets. What risks do you see in terms of country risks, transportation risks?
Look, I think, and I do get that question asked of me a bit, but Malawi, fundamentally, I mean, Africa is a very big place, right? So, but Malawi is seen. I mean, in fact, Malawi is referred to as the warm heart of Africa. So, it is. I've been there a number of times. I've found it very safe. Interestingly enough, there's a couple of companies that operate on the ASX operating in Malawi already. It's an agricultural country, and the government's very proactive now in looking for as a mining jurisdiction to develop mining. Rio Tinto recently just put a $40 million placement into another ASX listed company. So I think it's a pretty good place to do business. I think also from my perspective, having my major shareholder Luso Global Mining, which is part of a subsidiary of Motor Angel, they've been operating in Malawi for sort of 30 odd years. So that certainly helps me from a jurisdictional risk and being able to operate a bit more effectively.
So let's talk a bit more about Motor Angel and what benefits your relationship with them has for you exploration activities in Malawi.
Yeah, look, it's really interesting, and I suppose, as I just mentioned, that they have been operating in Malawi for 30 years. I mean, Motor Angel are a very large construction and mining and engineering company, do a lot of work. They're one of the largest engineering and procurement construction companies in Africa. Founded in 1976, so they have been around a while through Europe and Africa, as I said. So having them is incredibly beneficial, just for logistics. Whether that, and we have a service agreement which was in our prospectus. We'll definitely look to use their knowledge, their presence, and I suppose all the things that we need to do in these early stages of exploration, be that people, forward drives, or things that we need on a day-to-day basis. And look, certainly it's without their help, it sort of slingshot us to be able to progress a lot quicker than if it was just sort of a one-man band, if you like, operating in Western Australia.
And Cadell, tell us a bit more about your background and also, your board and the board's experience.
So my background is in the corporate finance stockbroking world. I was CEO of a company called DJ Carmichael's for just under 5 years. And then prior to COVID, I was actually approached by the Motor Angel Group and by my current chairman, Alexander Shaw. And he was approached by Manuel Motor to set up this subsidiary of the Motor Angel Group, being Luso Global Mining, our biggest shareholder. And that's actually where I came across the project. We were looking at a number of projects, but this one was within the Luso Global Mining stable. And I fell in love with the project. It had a scoping study been done on it, which we were not allowed to reference anything because it was previous people's work. But, from that point, I just decided I thought it was a really good asset. So, and that's, a year and a half with Luso, and then decided to take the plunge and put it on the ASX. And I think I had a bit more hair than Paul, but it was a stressful time. But nevertheless, it's been a good outcome. So on our board, Alexander Shaw, Dr. Alexander Shaw, has a PhD in geology and has worked in Africa for 20 years. So Alex is a great sounding board for me. Manuel Motor is the grandson of the founder of the Motor Angel Group. So having his exposure to, for us is particularly beneficial. Obviously, that relationship with Motor, and then Dennis Wilkins is our company secretary and other board member, and Dennis is very experienced with ASX and workings and been involved with them for 20 odd years. So we've got a pretty well-rounded board, and I think collectively we're quite tight. And we're just trying to add value, for shareholders in this early stage.
And Cadell, we're already in December, the year's coming to a close. Can you give investors a little insight into what they should be expecting from Chilwa in early 2024?
There's a couple of things we'll look to do. I mean, obviously now, as I said, we've recently made this announcement about the second rig and checking for clays. But first and foremost, we are a mineral sands company. So we have been drilling and assays. We're expected to come to the market with those results sort of in the first quarter of 2024. We're also, that's been done with ALS. So ALS Johannesburg, we've got good relationships with them, and ALS in Perth will be doing the final assaying. We'll also be obviously testing for some of the results with the diamond, and then also we'll be really we need to solidify and work within the Motor Energy Group and our service agreement, and potentially look at how that works for us in the future, because it is a really good arrangement, and that arrangement, which was articulated in our in the prospectus, finishes on the 31st of December. So we'll need to make sure that in the new year we have some announcements regarding that. So yeah, we've got a lot of activity, it's quite an exciting time.
Cadell Buss, many thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Paul.